Assalamu alaikum guys, I hope you're doing well. So in this video I want to discuss about risk assessment. So let's take an example and we will understand the entire process or the life cycle of risk assessment. So in this example, let us take that you are tasked to perform risk assessment on a infrastructure or any application in an organization. So how do you go about performing the risk assessment? So your step number one would be to identify all the assets. So you need to have an inventory of all the assets that are being used, whether it's all the if you are tasked to do in applications or infrastructures components. So you have to create a comprehensive inventory of all the applications, services, and infrastructure component that are running in an organization. So once you maintain a list of for inventory, the next process would be to classify each of the asset based on their severity or criticality, value, and sensitivity. So step number one is to identify the asset, have an inventory, and then classify those list of inventory into their in terms of their criticality, value, and sensitivity. Now that you have identified the asset and also you have classified each of the assets, your next step would be to identify the threats and vulnerabilities. So you have to perform something called as threat modeling. So you'll have to identify what are the potential threat for each asset, such as cyber attacks or natural disaster or human error. So once you perform what could be the potential cyber threats, and then you can use vulnerability scanning, such as automated tools to scan to know for known vulnerabilities in an application or infrastructure. So once you have done these things, your next stage would be to assess the risk. So in this stage, what we'll do is basically we'll perform the risk analysis. So basically, we will evaluate the likelihood and impact of each identified threat. This can be done using qualitative methods such as high, medium, or low, or it can also be done through quantitative methods using the CIA metrics. Once you have done the risk analysis, your next step would be to perform the create a risk matrix. So create a risk matrix to prioritize the risk based on their severity and likelihood. And once this risk assess analysis is completed, our next step is very crucial, and this is to implement the right controls. So the idea is to mitigate the risk by having implementing the right controls. So we'll have to develop the strategies to mitigate the identified risks, such as implementing security controls, or it could also be updating software or improving access controls. And it can also involve patching, ensuring that all software and systems are up to date with the latest security patches. And your stage number five is to monitor and review. So you'll have to do a continuous monitoring. So implement continuous monitoring to detect the new threats and vulnerabilities, perform regular reviews, conduct regular reviews, and update to the risk assessment to ensure that it remains current and effective. And the final stage would be to document and report it. So having a documentation to document the entire risk process, including what are the identified risks, what strategies you took to mitigate those risks, and what are the controls measures you applied. And you can do the reporting as well. So prepare a report for the stakeholders, let them know how are these being maintained, highlighting what are the key findings and what are the recommendations. So that was the entire process of risk assessment. Since we took the example for performing risk assessment for an application or infrastructure environment, so for that we can also know some of the tools and resources. So Usually, if you're using vulnerability scanners, so you should be familiar with Nessus, OpenVAS, and Qualys. This can identify vulnerabilities, and you should also read about risk management frameworks such as the NIST, ISO 27000, and CIS controls, which provides guidelines for conducting the risk assessment. So that's it for this video, and I will see you guys in another video. Until next time, assalamu alaikum.